This is the first lecture in the four lecture long crash course for statistical thermodynamics, and in this lecture I'll be discussing introduction to statistical thermodynamics, what are the types of ensembles you have, what are the types of particles you have, what are the number of possible arrangements, how you can find them for classical particles, for bosons and fermions, and then we'll end with what is partition function and how it depends on temperature. So let's start with the introduction part. So what is statistical thermodynamics? Now in thermodynamics we study the bulk properties or the macroscopic properties, which are like enthalpy, free energy, internal energy, entropy, temperature, all those things. But how those properties are related to the changes that are occurring at the atomic level or at the microscopic level. So that means statistical thermodynamics is actually the link between the microscopic properties, that means the arrangement of particles at the atomic level, and the macroscopic properties, which are the thermodynamic properties like enthalpy and energy. So this is the statistical thermodynamics tries to correlate these microscopic and macroscopic properties. Okay. Now when we want to study a system, which is, say suppose you have a system this large and you have lots of particles inside it. Now it's not possible to study the system as a whole. So what we do is we divide the system into smaller parts. So let's say we have split the system into smaller parts like these. Now these smaller parts are similar to each other in macroscopic properties. So that means they are similar at macro level. That means they have the same internal energy, they have the same enthalpy, but they are different in the microscopic properties. That means they are different in properties like the number of particles or the arrangement of particles. Now each of these smaller systems are known as ensemble. Now ensembles are, so by definition, ensembles are smaller parts of the larger system which are similar at macroscopic properties but different at microscopic properties. So that is what an ensemble is. Now in order to define an ensemble, you need certain parameters which should be given. So depending on what parameters are given or what parameters are defined for a system, ensembles can be broadly categorized in three different parts. So the first one is microscopic ensemble. Now microscopic ensemble needs N, E and V to be defined. Now N is the total number of particles, E is the energy, and V is the volume of the particles. So that means you should be given number of particles, energy and volume so that a microscopic ensemble can be formed. Now this also means that these three properties for a microscopic ensemble remains constant. Okay. Now there is another classification, another type which is known as canonical ensemble, and this has NVT. T is temperature. So you need temperature to be defined along with number of particles and volume for a canonical ensemble to be formed. That means these three properties remain constant for a canonical ensemble. And the last type is grand canonical. For this you need mu Vt. Mu is chemical potential, or in other terms these three remain constant. Now questions have come from the type of ensemble and its properties. You need to understand what these constant terms mean. So if number of particles is constant, that means the walls of these ensembles are impenetrable. For constant terms, if n is constant, that means the walls are impenetrable. If volume is constant, that means the walls are rigid. The walls will not move. So if the walls are not moving, the volume cannot change. If energy is constant, that means the walls are non-conducting or adiabatic. Okay. Now in canonical ensemble, you have temperature constant. Now for temperature to be constant, the walls have to be conducting so that if any extra work is being done by the system or is done on the system, that extra energy released or gained can be conducted out and the temperature remains constant. For temperature constant, walls have to be conducting. And finally, for chemical potential, walls become penetrable. That means the particles can come out and particles can come in and go out. Okay, fine. So the questions have come with respect to relation of these kind of properties of the walls and the kind of ensemble, which we'll discuss in the next video. Now we have defined our system. In our system, what do we have? We have particles and we want to see how the particles are being arranged. So let's take a look at what are the types of particles we can have. So broadly, particles are divided into two types: identical and non-identical. Non-identical particles have different mass and charge. Now for particles having different mass and charge, it becomes difficult to study them because they will have a large number of interaction with other particles. So in statistical thermodynamics, we don't study non-identical particles. Instead, we focus on identical particles which has same mass and charge. Now, identical particles are further classified into two types: distinguishable or non-distinguishable. Now, what do you mean by distinguishable and non-distinguishable? Now, distinguishable means that you are actually able to track the position of the particle when it is in motion. That means when it is doing translation motion. So that means these are those particles which can be pointed out while they are in motion. We know from Heisenberg uncertainty principle that quantum particles follow Heisenberg uncertainty principle. That means you cannot simultaneously determine the momentum and position of a particle. Now, if you know the particle is doing motion, that means you know it has a momentum. That means you cannot pinpoint its position. So these are not quantum particles, rather they are classical particles, and they follow classical laws and or that means in statistics they will follow Maxwell Boltzmann statistics, and they do not follow Heisenberg uncertainty principle. While non-distinguishable particles, as I said, you cannot track or you cannot point out the position while the particle is in motion. So they are quantum particles which follow quantum laws and follow Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Now, what kind of statistics they will follow? Depending on that, you have two more categories, that are bosons and fermions. Now, bosons follow Bose-Einstein statistics. And fermions follow Fermi-Dirac statistics. Now, one major property of Bose-Einstein statistics is that more than one particle can stay in the same quantum state. And for fermions, we know that no more than one particle can stay in the same quantum state. And another important property of bosons and fermions is that for bosons, wave function is symmetric with respect to exchange of particles. That means, suppose you have a system which has particles arranged as psi 1, 2, 3 and till n, and you have another system which has particles 2, 1 till n. Only 1 and 2 are replaced. Now there will be no change in the sign of these two wave functions. That is why they are symmetric. But for fermions, antisymmetric with respect to exchange of particles. So that means if you have psi 1, 2 till n and you have psi 2, 1 till n, there will be negative sign because they are antisymmetric with respect to the exchange of any two particles. Okay. Now what are some examples? Bosons will have examples like photons, phonons, while fermions will have the examples of electron, proton, neutron. Okay. So that is all about the types of particles we have. Questions now, directly questions don't come with respect to what are fermions and bosons, but they say that you have particles which are antisymmetric. Now when they are saying the particles are antisymmetric, you have to understand that they are fermions and you have to use the formula for fermions only. Now we are done with the number of particles, the types of particles we have, types of ensemble we have. Now we'll take a look at how you can arrange the number of particles for a given situation or a given conditions, and how you can find the number of possible arrangements, from which a lot of questions have come previously. Now we'll take a look at how you can find the number of possible arrangements for a given number of particles. Like we have done these kind of questions when we were in high school, that if you are given 3 particles, say they are named A, B and C, how many possible arrangements are there for these 3 particles? And the answer is 3 factorial. So that's the simplest. If you are given n number of particles, the possible number of arrangements becomes n factorial. And the number of possible arrangements is denoted by W, or weight of the configuration or arrangement. How much is the contribution of that particular configuration or arrangement towards the total property? That is what we know, W. Now let's say, so I get W is equals to n factorial. Now let's say out of these 3 particles, I have made 2 of the particles to be same. Okay, so initially what I would have had, I would have that I have A, B, C. Now the next particle in group of 3 could be, like say this is one group, this is another group, this is the third group. So in the first group I could have after A, it can be either B or C. Similarly, it could be either A or C, or it could be either A or B. Depending on that, this will be C, this will be B, this is C, this is A, this is B, this is A. So depending on that, you would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 arrangements. Now if I am making that the particles A and C, so that means this becomes A. So if this becomes A, all I have now here is A and C. Now if one is A, the end particle is also A. This is C, but now if you take a look at it, these 2 arrangements are exactly the same. Similarly, these 2 arrangements are exactly the same, and these 2 arrangements are also exactly the same. So now you are putting some constraints. So what are the types of arrangement now you have? You have 3 arrangements. So you are putting some constraints on the system by making some particles similar or some particles same. So those constraints divide this by the number of particles factorial. So Ni is the number of particles of same type, or in general when we use it, in same energy level. Now if you have, say for example, 10 particles and they are arranged in 3 energy levels in the form of 2, 3 and 5, so your N1 is 2, N2 is 3 and N3 is 5, and your total number of possible arrangement becomes 10 factorial by 2 factorial, 3 factorial, 5 factorial. Or we can write this in formula n factorial by pi I ni factorial, where pi I means the product of all the ni factorials. Okay. Now let's say fine. Now if you are given the degeneracy of the system or degeneracy of each energy level, so that degeneracy contributes to the total energy level, total number of possible arrangements by a factor gi to the power ni, where gi is the degeneracy of ith energy level and ni is the number of particles in ith energy level. So that means this is degeneracy of ith level, and we know ni is the number of particles in ith level. Okay. Now let's say for example in the question you are given only total number of particles. In that case your W will be n factorial. If total number of particles and degeneracy is given, then your W becomes n factorial, sorry, not n factorial, gi to the power ni by ni factorial, where ni is the total number of particles. There are questions for this. Say for example you are given that there are 100 particles and 100 degenerate states. For that this will be 100 to the power 100 by 100 factorial. Now if you are given total number of particles, degeneracy and ni also, in that case your W becomes n factorial pi I gi to the power ni by ni factorial. You can also use this formula even if gi is not given. If gi is not given, consider degeneracy as 1, so this gets converted to this formula. That means you are given total number of particles and number of particles in each energy level, then the formula changes to n factorial by pi I ni factorial. Now it's important to remember these 4 formulas, because depending on what condition it is given in the question, you can use any of these formulas, and a lot of questions can be solved using this and this formula. Now we had seen that Ni is the number of particles in specific energy levels or ith energy level. This is also known as occupation number. Like for this system, I can say the occupation number is 235. That means the particles are arranged in 235, going from I equal to 1 to I equal to 3. That means for first, second and third energy level. Okay. So these are the formulas for the types, number of arrangements you can find. Let's take one example, a very simple example which I had also discussed in the statistical thermodynamics series. Suppose you are given n equal to 3 and total energy is equals to 4, say 4 epsilon, and the energy levels are given as 0, E, 2E. Degeneracy is not given, so let's say degeneracy is 1 for all the energy levels, and you have to find the number of possible arrangements you can have for 3 particles so that the total energy becomes 4 epsilon. So first possible arrangement is that you keep 2 particles here, 0 here, 1 here, and the second is that you put okay, so 2 particles here, 4 epsilon. There is no second arrangement. Okay. Let's change the parameters a bit. So let's say 4 epsilon you cannot get from here. Okay, let's say you have 5 particles and you still have 4 epsilon to go. Okay. So here you would have 3 more particles left, and it is also possible that you keep 2 here, 1 here, and 2 here, or you can keep 4 here, 0 here, 1 here. So these are the 3 possible arrangements you can have so that you get 4 epsilon as the energy. Okay. Now how do you find the total number of possible arrangements for all of these? So you get WA is equals to total number of particles is 5, so 5 factorial by 3 factorial is N1, 0 factorial is N2, 2 factorial is N3. So this would give you 5, 4, 3 factorial, 3 factorial, 2. 0 factorial is 1, so these get cancelled, I get 10. So for second arrangement, I have 5 factorial by 2 factorial, 2 factorial, 1 factorial. So that would give me 5, 4, 3 by 2, this is 30. And for the third, I get 5 factorial by 4 factorial, 1 factorial, 0 factorial, this will give me 5. So that means this is the weight of configuration A, weight of configuration B, weight of configuration C. So the total number of possible arrangements is equals to what? 10 plus 30, 40, 45. So there are 45 number of possible ways to arrange 5 particles such that you get 4 epsilon as a total energy. So for each of the different configuration, you would use the formula for W and then sum them up. Okay. So this is all about for now. Okay, all of these formulas are for classical particles. This is important. But if in the question they say bosons or fermions, then you will use a slightly different formula, which we'll see now. Okay, so let's start with bosons. Now, suppose you have 3 particles and 3 energy levels, say like this, and you have arranged the particles in this way. So in total, you have 6 variables. So for 6 variables, you would expect the W to be n factorial or say 6 factorial, right? Okay. Now, if there are 6 independent variables, then one of the possible arrangement should have been this. But tell me, is it possible for any particle to be below the lowest energy level? That is not true. That means there is a constraint on the number of energy levels. That will always be -1, Gi -1. So the formula will become Ni plus Gi -1. Now what are the constraints that you are putting? The constraints are obviously the number of particles which are present at each energy level. So that means divided by Ni factorial and the number of energy levels -1. So those constraints remain there because the energy levels are same here. Okay. So this is the formula for number of part arrangements for bosons. Now in the question they may not say directly bosons, they may also say that the particles are symmetric with respect to exchange, or the wave function is symmetric for particles with respect to exchange. That means you have to consider the case of bosons. Now for small number of particles, Bosons follow Bose-Einstein statistics. But for large number of particles, bosons follow Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics. Now, Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics is for classical particles. That means when the number of particles of bosons increases, the formula will no more be that of the bosons, but for that of classical particles. This formula will use when you are given large number of bosons, say for example 100. Okay, fine. Now let's take the example of fermions. Now fermions have a property that no more than one particle can be present in the same quantum state. So let's say you have 5 different energy levels and you have 3 particles. Now since it's not possible for 2 particles to be present in the same state, so the number of particles is now not contributing that much to the number of arrangements. The larger contributing factor becomes the number of energy levels. So that becomes Gi factorial. Now what are the constraints that you are putting? First of all, obviously the number of particles, and secondly the number of empty energy levels. Now it doesn't matter if the energy, let's say this is AB or this is BA, they are still the same because the energy levels don't have specific identity when they are degenerate. So this factor is for the empty energy levels and this factor is for the occupied energy levels. They are all the same. So that is why these are the constants you are putting, and this is the formula for fermions. And just like bosons, for large number of particles, fermions also follow Bose-Einstein statistics. Sorry, Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics. So that means for them also the formula changes to, yes. And questions have come for large number of particles previously. Okay, so this is all a gist of how you can find the number of particles and how they are why they are changing to large number of particles. The fermions and bosons follow Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics. The details of these, why they are doing this, is derived and explained in the lecture series on statistical mechanics on this channel. If you are interested, you can go check them out. So we are done with the number of arrangements now. The last part of this video is partition function. Denoted by Q. Now partition function is a fundamental property of any particular system in statistical thermodynamics, just like a wave function is in quantum mechanics. Now a wave function gives the identity of the system. In the same way, in statistical thermodynamics, partition function gives you the identity of the system. Just by the name partition, you can make out that it tells you the partition of particles in different energy levels. How the particles are distributed in different energy levels, that is what is given by partition function. Now partition function depends only on temperature. That means for a particular temperature there will be a definite value of partition function. As you change the temperature, the partition function changes. Now this is true if you think in this sense that if you change the temperature, if you increase the temperature, the number of particles which are occupying certain energy levels will change. It is possible that if we have 4 energy levels, at low temperature most of the particles are present here, but as you increase the temperature, particles move on. So the partition function in the first case will involve only these 2 energy levels, but now will involve these 3 energy levels. So that means partition function depends on temperature. So partition function in other terms give you the thermally accessible energy levels. That means how many energy levels or which all energy levels are accessible to you at a particular temperature. That is why thermally. Now the formula for partition function is Q is equals to summation Gi e to the power beta epsilon I, where epsilon I is the energy of ith level, Gi is the degeneracy of ith level, and beta is equals to 1 by kT, where T is the thermodynamic temperature or the identity of the system. Okay, and K is, Boltzmann constant. Now let us take a look what will happen if we have said that partition function depends only on temperature. So what will happen when temperature tends to 0? So in this case, you will have Gi e to the power minus epsilon I by k 0. Now in this case, you would see this becomes e to the power minus infinity, or 1 by e to the power infinity, which is approximately equals to 0. So you would expect this to be G0 plus G1 e to the power minus infinity. In this way, this becomes G0 plus 0, that means G0. Why I have not taken the part for G0? Because let us say the ground state energy level is 0. For that case, this becomes in any way 0 by kT. So this entire part becomes e to the power 0, which is 1. So the exponential contribution does not come in the first case. So this gives you that the partition function is now the degeneracy of the ground state, or in other terms it says that when temperature tends to 0, only the ground state is accessible to the system and all the particles will be present only in the ground state, which is actually true. Now let's take the example of t tends to infinity. So for this case, you will get, say, G0 e to the power minus epsilon I by k infinity plus G1 e to the power minus epsilon. So let's say this was epsilon 0, epsilon 1 by k infinity, and this continues. Now, when we have e to the power minus epsilon 1 by infinity, that means e to the power minus 0, that becomes 1. So that means all the exponential parts now become 1, and what you have is the degeneracy or summation Gi. That means partition function now becomes equal to the degeneracy of all the energy levels. That means all the energy levels are now thermally accessible to the system, or in other words, we can say that all energy levels are equally probable for the system to occupy. Okay, and questions have come for these kind of statements, so it's important you understand how partition function changes with temperature. So for any other energy, for say for temperature between 0 to infinity, partition function will be somewhere between G0 to summation Gi. That's understood, right? Fine. So this is all about statistical thermodynamics in terms of introduction, particles, ensembles, number of possible arrangements, and partition function. We are done with this lecture in this crash course, and in the next video I will be discussing the questions that have come in NET, GATE and TIFR for all of those topics which I have discussed in this video. In case you have any doubts in this particular video, please write them down in the comments. I will surely clear them up in the very next video.